Hello everyone, and welcome to our third week of Hands-on Faith. Today we will read about a miracle in the Bible, and we will do an experiment with ketchup. Does ketchup float or sink? What if it can do both? Let's find out. Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's science experiment. For this week we will be making the magic ketchup experiment. So for this experiment you will just need a few household items, a clear plastic bottle, and a small packet of ketchup. You will fill your plastic bottle with water until the very top. You will stick your packet of ketchup in until it floats, and then you will put your cap back on and fasten it tightly. Now, I will call in Dr. Hairball to assist us today, as we will need his help because we need audience participation to make the magic happen. All right?
Dr. Hairball reporting to the desk.
Liam and Kevin, you're going to help Mommy. Yes?
Well, so what we need to do right now is I need you. Do you know how to hum?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, but we all need to hum, okay? Because humming makes this thing go down. Are you ready?
Are you going to help us? Help us hum.
2, and
Go.
go! Stop! Go again! Stop! You did that?
Did you do that?
Wow! That's
Actually,
awesome.
it's all science. There's no magic involved at all. And our humming had no effect on the ketchup. Dr. Hairball, can you explain what exactly just happened?
We applied some pressure to the container.
So you tricked us, Dr. Hairball.
Nah,
You
we
were-
just had fun
You
together.
were squeezing the bottle.
Squeeze the bottle hard and it goes down.
Yes.
And then it goes
and
up.
it goes back up.
And you squeeze hard and it goes down.
But it is a fun experiment to try at home
Can I do it? Can I do it?
Yeah, you do it.
and to show others. Yes? Oh, you had to squeeze that bottle pretty hard.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Plastic
It's
is
moving.
pretty thick.
Ready?
But the reason the ketchup drops is because the ketchup packet has a small air bubble inside that allows it to float on top of the water. And when we squeeze the bottle, we change the density of the ketchup so the ketchup has greater density and sinks to the bottom. When we release it, it floats back up to the top. Now, you guys can have fun experimenting with different things at home. You could try different size bottles to see if that changes anything. Does the temperature of the water change anything? And
they're calling us
apparently they're calling us scientists for something. So we will see you the next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Screwball Science. I am Dr. Hairball, and with me always my partner, Dr. Epstein. Today we are going to be doing an experiment with a water bottle and ketchup. Can you guess what is this?
We are making tomato juice.
Wrong. We are going to do something that seems impossible.
We are making lemonade.
Lemonade? That's not Impossible.
It is with water and ketchup.
Dr. Lipstick, observe the ketchup in the bottle. Does it sink or float?
It floats.
But what happens when I squeeze the bottle?
Oh no, it's sinking.
Observe, Doctor, if I release the bottle, the ketchup floats. If I squeeze it again, it sinks.
It's a miracle.
No, it's science.
Oh, that was my second guess.
You know, God can help us do some amazing things too. More amazing than my tricky little ketchup experiment. You remember the story of Peter walking on the water?
Oh yes, Peter saw Jesus walking on the water and he asked Jesus to let him walk on water. Peter got out of the boat and in the middle of a storm he walked on water.
How did he do that?
Science!
No, that was a miracle.
Oh, wrong again.
When Peter looked at Jesus, he stayed on top of the waters, but as soon as he took the eyes off of Jesus, he sank.
Just like the ketchup.
It's like a great miracle that we need to keep our eyes on Jesus. It's a great reminder. We need to have faith. Because when we have faith, God can do miraculous things through us.
Like the time I made a volcano with baking soda and vinegar?
That was science.
Oh. Well, what about the rocket I made with water as fuel?
Science.
Oh. What about the time I made the Queen of Hearts appear out of the middle of a deck of cards?
That was a magic trick.
What about the time I got the bully at school to stop picking on people by telling him Jesus loved him?
That was amazing.
Oh, I finally got one right.
Keep your eyes on Jesus. Kids, and you know what impossible thing can happen. That's all for Screwball Science today, kids. We'll have another exciting science lesson next week. See you then.
In today's experiment, we saw that we can make a packet of ketchup sink to the bottom of a bottle of water and then bob right back to the top. It's an amazing little trick to watch, but it's really not a trick. There's a tiny bubble of air inside that ketchup, just enough that when we drop it in some water, the ketchup packet will float. But what happens when we seal it in a bottle and squeeze that bottle tight? The bubble of air gets compressed from the pressure we applied to the bottle and the ketchup begins to sink. It's no trick to make the ketchup sink to the bottom. It's science. For thousands of years, we have been making boats that can float on the sea and carry us miles away. Boats led the Pilgrims and Christopher Columbus to America. Boats enabled explorers like Magellan to travel around the world. Boats allowed the Vikings and Romans to attack their enemies by sea. And let's not forget the earliest boat known to recorded history, a floating zoo we call the Ark. It's not a trick that allows boats to float, it's science. Engineers have learned what allows a boat made of metals and other heavy materials to float instead of sink. We've become such experts on the science of boat building, we have boats in our Navy large enough to launch airplanes that travel the high seas. People can float in water by themselves, even without a boat. But it's not easy. Unless the water is calm, like the water of a swimming pool, you could find yourself struggling to stay afloat. A strong undercurrent or a powerful wave can knock you under the water and put you in real trouble. Science tells us that we just weren't made to float. That's what makes today's Bible story so incredible. Perhaps by now you might have guessed it. We're going to read the story today about Jesus walking on the water in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 to 36. I'll give you a second to search for that if you'd like to follow along. It's Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 to 36. Jesus walks on the water. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side. That would be the lake. While he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." When they had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized Jesus, they sent word to all the surrounding country. People brought all their sick to him and begged him to let the sick just touch the edge of his cloak. And all who touched him were healed. So this is the second time in this series that we've seen the disciples get caught in a storm. The first time, Jesus was in the boat with them and calmed the sea. This time, Jesus comes to them from the shore, not in a boat, but walking on the water. And then when Peter asks Jesus for permission, he actually steps out of the boat and starts to walk on water himself. This is not science. This is a miracle. It's one thing for the Son of God to walk on water. It's quite another for an ordinary man to do the same. Peter was a sinner, a flawed and imperfect follower of Jesus, but he was able to do the impossible because he had faith. It wasn't Peter who walked on water, it was Jesus who gave him the ability to do so. God wants each of us to have a faith like Peter's. He wants us to believe that Jesus can do the impossible. When we have that kind of faith, God can do amazing things through us. It's hard to believe that God can do miraculous things through us sometimes. It was hard for Peter to believe that Jesus could do anything through him. That doubt is why Peter started to sink beneath the waves. When Peter looked at the waves, he took his eyes off Jesus. He remembered that he was no miracle man, but just a common fisherman. He remembered he can't walk on water, and he stopped walking on water. I have no doubt that Peter could have walked all the way to Jesus and back if he had kept his eyes on Jesus. But I think it's good for us that Peter looked away when he did. I don't mean it's good that Peter sank. I mean we can learn from Peter's mistake. Peter took his eyes off Jesus. Peter let doubt get in the way of his faith. That's the only reason Peter fell into the water that night. God is counting on us to take the good news of Jesus to the world. If we have faith in Jesus, God can use us to do amazing things. We can help the needy. We can bring hope to the hopeless. We can help people who are angry at God and angry at Christians to see that Jesus really does love them. But to do these things, we need faith. We need to keep our eyes on Jesus. If we are focused on Christ, nothing is impossible. We may not walk on water, but we can make a real difference in our world, in our community, and in the people closest to us. Don't doubt the power of God to do great things in your life. Have faith. Believe that Jesus can do miracles through your hands, and you'll be amazed what happens next. Let's think. What can I do this week to keep my eyes on Jesus?